There is a section of the criminal code that almost no one outside the work has ever read. Section 215. The duty to provide necessaries of life. Food, shelter, care. The things a person owes to someone who depends on them. I'm going to tell you what providing those things looked like in 9 houses in Eastern Ontario over 11 months. I want to start with the woman at the center of it, because I have not been able to start with anything else for some time now. 11 witnesses described her. Their descriptions of her face do not agree on a single feature. Hair, eyes, age, accent, none of it lines up. There is one thing all 11 describe the same way, in nearly identical language, in statements they could not have coordinated. Her hands. Long fingers. Capable. A scar across the back of the right one, running from the base of the thumb to the wrist. Raised. White. The kind of scar a person gets from a kitchen knife slipping on a long cut. Every witness, the same scar. Same hand, same length. The face moves. The hands do not. I want you to hold that. The face moves, the hands do not. We will come back to the hands. Over those 11 months, in one health unit catchment of 40,000 people across a lot of empty road, there were 9 intimate partner deaths. All 9 accused were women. The men were the ones who died. In a region like that, you expect, in a bad year, 1. 9 is not a bad year. 9 is a phenomenon. I read the brief on the 4th one first, by accident, because it was the thickest and it was on top. I have read all 9 since. I'm going to tell you about 3. The first I'll tell you about, the 4th file, by docket, was a woman of 61. I will not give you her name. The criminal record came back so clean the officer flagged it in his notes, the way you flag a thing that is too smooth to walk on. Her husband was found in the 2nd week of November in the downstairs bathroom of their house. He weighed, when the coroner's people took him, 41 kilograms. He was a man who, on his health card photo from 4 years earlier, did not look like a man who would ever weigh 41 kilograms. The kitchen was clean. There was a pot on the stove that had been on a low element for some hours. It had cooked off most of what was in it. There was a second bowl at the table, spoon parallel to the edge, glass of water, fresh. She had set him a place. She had set it well. She was in the front room. She was calm. The warrant statement runs 40 pages, and at no point does she stop being calm. She tells the detective she had been caring for him. She uses that word, caring. She tells him her husband had stopped wanting food, the television, the door, and that this was hard at first, but that it had also been the closest they had ever been. The detective asks her, gently, whether her husband had been eating. There is a pause in the transcript. The pause is marked, and she says, "He didn't have to want it. He only had to need me." Then she says one more thing that I am not going to forget, and that I think about more than I should. She says, "I was a wife. I gave him what was mine to give." The autopsy is what I want to talk about now, because the autopsy is where the case stopped being a case I could read like a case. The forensic pathologist is a woman I have known for some years. She does not write anything she cannot put a number on. Her reports are short. They are dry. They do not editorialize. The report on the 4th file is the longest she has ever sent me. In the digestive tract of a 63-year-old man who had starved over a period of, by her estimate, between 4 and 6 months in a house with a functioning refrigerator and a freezer full of food, she found tissue that did not come from him. Hair, 2 strands, long, gray, intact. Fragments of fingernail, skin in small pieces that had been chewed and swallowed. A volume of blood the report quantifies in milliliters that did not match his type. All of it tested, all of it from the same source, all of it from his wife. I want to be clear about what the report says because I want you to understand that we are not in the country of metaphor anymore. He had not been eating food. He had been eating her, in small pieces, for months. The pathology shows nothing in the digestive tract from anything except her. The pot of soup on the stove, they tested that too. Vegetable broth, salt, several long gray hairs, several drops of blood, her type. The soup was the delivery system. The soup was always the delivery system. The bowl on the table was where she put what she had cut off that day. When the detective went back with the report and asked her about this in a second interview, she did not become upset. She did not become anything. She said, "He was hungry. I had what he needed. I was a wife." Then she said, "I gave him the necessaries of life." She said those words. She knew the section. She used the language of the code. And the fitness assessor wrote that she presented no indicia of psychosis. She was not delusional. She did not believe she had been doing something she had not been doing. She believed she had been feeding her husband accurately on exactly what his body required, which was her. She was found fit, and on every measure of capacity, she was correct in believing she was sane. He had wasted because he could no longer metabolize anything that was not her. The pathology shows that too. The Center of Forensic Sciences in Toronto, the CFS, ran panels on his blood and his brain tissue, and what they found was a binding pattern at receptors normally associated with hunger, thirst, and attachment. Those three together, which the report notes is not a combination that occurs naturally, that they could not match to any known pharmaceutical and could not, on confirmatory testing, isolate. The analyte degraded under direct analysis. They have it on the initial screen. They lost it on the second pass. They lost it the same way in 6 other files. We will come back to that. The neurological summary is one sentence. I am going to read it to you. Quote, "The decedent's central nervous system appears to have ceased recognizing exogenous nutritional sources, with sustained recognition of one source only, that source being the spouse, and specifically tissue and bodily product of the spouse." End quote. He starved in a house full of food because his body did not know food was food anymore. It knew her. It knew nothing else. The bottles came from somewhere. The investigators are good, and they did the work, and the work led them to a market. It ran on a county road on Saturdays from spring to the first hard frost. Mostly preserves and woodwork and a man who sharpens knives. There was one stall on the end of the row, set a little further back than the others, that sold dried herbs in jars and teas wrapped in paper and tinctures in small amber bottles. Roughly 30 milliliters, cork stoppers, labels written by hand in an even, patient script. The woman who ran it was, by every account, kind. She had regulars. I want you to picture this. A folding table, a wool blanket laid across it, jars of dried things arranged by color, a woman behind it whose face you could not, hours later, describe to a sketch artist. 11 people tried. The sketches do not look like the same woman. They do not, in some cases, look like the same species. One witness, a retired school teacher who came to the stall every Saturday for 2 seasons, said she had spoken to her perhaps 50 times in her life and could not, that afternoon at the detachment, tell you what color her eyes were. She wept a little when she realized that. She said, "I know her. I just can't see her." What the witnesses agreed on was the hands, the scar across the right one, and the voice. The voice did not move. The voice was low and even and unhurried and described in 3 separate statements in identical language as the voice of someone reading you a recipe she had read aloud many times before. She would talk to her customers, the lonely ones mostly. She had a way of identifying them that one witness described as uncomfortable to watch, the way you might watch a person at a dog park notice which dog has not been fed. She would say to the lonely ones that she had something for the heart. That was all she ever called it, for the heart. She did not promise to make anyone loved. The witnesses are clear, almost defensive, that she never said that. She said it would make the other person need them. She drew the distinction herself, at the stall, in front of people. I am going to tell you the things she said, because she said them often, and many people remembered them word for word. She said, "Wanting is weather, need is bone." She said, "He will come back to you. Whatever it takes to come back, he will do it." She said, "Don't pity him when he begs. The begging is the love." And she said to one woman who asked her in front of 2 other customers what was in the bottle, 3 things, that's all, and 1 decision. The decision is the hardest part. A customer once asked to photograph her with permission for a county newsletter piece on the market. The photographer was a professional. The negatives are in the file. The woman is in the photograph. You can see her stall. You can see her hands. You can see her blanket and the row of bottles and the price card she had set out that day. Where her face should be, there is a blur. Not motion blur, not focal blur. A blur the photographer could not, looking through the viewfinder at the time of the shot, see. He saw a face. The negative did not keep it. I have looked at the negative. I have looked at the digital scan. I have asked 2 other people to look. None of us can describe the face. All 3 of us can describe the scar on the right hand. The scar is in perfect focus. She was holding, in the photograph, a small amber bottle. She was holding it out towards someone outside the frame. The customer who took the photograph could not, when interviewed, remember who she had been holding the bottle out to. She remembered the gesture. She had described it to the officer as the way a mother offers a spoon. I want to tell you about the second case now. It was, chronologically, the first. A 34-year-old man and his wife, both employed, no prior contact with police, no history of intimate partner reports, married 11 years. The responding officer was new. He had been on the road less than a year. He wrote his report the way you write a report when you do not yet have the language for what you've walked into. The wife had used a cast iron pan. The pathology is not subtle. The pan recovered from the scene weighed 3.5 kilograms. There was 1 impact. It was sufficient. The officer's diagram does not need a second mark. The pan was on the counter when responders arrived. It had been washed. It had been dried. It had been hung back on its hook above the stove. The officer notes the hook in his report. He notes it because everything else in that kitchen was as it had been before. There was a meal in progress. There were 2 settings at the table. The radio was on, low. She was on the floor in the next room, where her husband was. She was not standing over him. She was not sitting beside him. The officer wrote, and I am going to read this from the report because I am not going to summarize it. Quote, "The female party was located in a recumbent position on the floor immediately adjacent to the deceased, on her right side, knees drawn toward her chest, the side of her face resting against the deceased's lower abdomen, her body in continuous contact with the pooled blood from the head wound, which had spread across the floor and saturated her hair, her clothing, and the carpet beneath her. Her eyes were open. She was conscious. She was breathing normally. She appeared, in the officer's words, at peace. End quote. He asked her what she was doing. She said, "I can feel the warmth of his love." He asked her what she meant. She said, "He gave it all to me. He gave me everything he had. I didn't know it would be this warm." She did not resist arrest. She walked out under her own power. She left footprints in the hallway. The booking photo shows a woman with blood dried on the side of her face and a small, settled smile. In her warned statement given the next day, she said she had loved him very much, and that for a long time she had wondered what it would feel like to be loved by him completely, without anything held back. She said she had been told by someone that there was a way. She said she had not believed it would work until that afternoon. She said, "But it did work. He gave me all of it. He didn't keep any. I could feel it leaving him. It was warm coming out." She said, "I am sorry the kitchen got bloody. I'm not sorry about the rest." The CFS found the analyte in his blood. The amber bottle was in her handbag at the scene. The cork was still in it. There was perhaps 2/3 left. She had used it on him, by her account, for 3 weeks. She would not describe to the detective what she meant when she said she had used it. She said only this. She said, "I made him need me, and then I asked him for everything." The pathologist on that file, a different one, noted at autopsy that the man's heart was enlarged in a pattern she could not account for. The muscle had thickened. The chambers had stretched. It was, she wrote, as though the heart had been working much harder, for some time, against something pulling at it from outside. She wrote that in the report. Against something pulling at it from outside. She did not strike it. The report went forward as written. The third case is the one I keep on my desk. She was 47. Her partner did not starve, exactly, and was not struck. He withered in their house over a period the pathologist could not bracket better than several months. He had been a long-distance trucker, a big man. By the time anyone saw him last, through the window, he was something else. The neighbor gave a statement that is 4 lines long. I have read it more times than 4 lines deserve. I waved at him through the window in the spring. He waved back. He looked like he was apologizing. There was no lock on the bedroom door. There was no chain. The front door of the house worked. The back door of the house worked. He did not go through any of them. He stayed in the one room. He stayed in the bed. By the time he was found, the mattress had a body-shaped depression in it that the responding officer described as the only impression a human body had made on it in months. The pathology on this one is the one that broke me. He had not been confined. He had been unable. Over time, his body had stopped processing food when she was not in the room. They were able to test this. There was a hospital admission 8 months before he died for failure to thrive, and the chart shows nurses unable to keep him hydrated for an entire shift unless the wife was present. They thought he was anxious. They thought he was depressed. They thought he was attached to her in the way long-married people get attached to each other. They sent him home. The CFS found the analyte in his blood, too. Lower concentration, older dosing. She had used it on him, by her account, for over 2 years. When she was arrested, she was not in distress. She told the officer she had been keeping him safe. She said the world had things in it that wanted him, and she had made it so they could not have him. She told the officer he was happy. She said he had wept that morning when she came into the room, the way he wept every morning, with relief, because she was the only thing in the world that registered to him anymore as being real. She said, "He wept the same when I came in to feed him, and the same when I came in to hurt him." He did not, by the end, know the difference. He only knew it was me. In her kitchen, in a recipe box, on the yellowed index card, in handwriting that did not match her own on any other document in the file, was a recipe. 3 ingredients. I will not list them. All 3 are lawful. All 3 are in most kitchens in this country right now. The instruction at the bottom of the card, in the same patient hand, says, "Make it for someone you have decided to keep." The neighbor, in her 4-line statement, said one more thing that the officer pressed her on and that she would not expand. She said that the previous summer, on an evening she could not pin down, she had seen a woman she did not recognize standing in the driveway of the house, talking with the wife. Older woman, long coat. The neighbor could not describe her face. She could describe, the officer underlined this, a scar on the back of the woman's right hand. The neighbor said, "I think the wife was crying. I think the older woman was holding her hand. The way she held the hand, I could see the scar." The witch was not at the stall that Saturday. She was at the house. She was teaching. 6 of the 9 warned statements contain a version of the same sentence about the dead. He didn't have to want it. He only had to need me. 6 women in 6 rooms with 6 lawyers, none of whom had met, reciting the same line about the same crime as though they were remembering the same instruction. Memory does not do this. Memory is the most personal thing a person owns. It does not synchronize, unless something synchronized it. The woman from the market was never charged. There was a file on her. The last entry in it is a property note and a single line. Person of interest, location unknown. No further investigative steps available at this time. The stall did not come back the following spring. The man who sharpens knives said he assumed she had retired. He could not describe her face. He could draw, when asked, the scar on her hand. He drew it on the 3rd try, without realizing he had drawn it twice already. I have been asked by people whose job it is to ask me things, what I think happened in that catchment over those 11 months. 9 women are serving sentences. The system did what it is built to do. It found the vessel, it weighed the conduct, it assigned the consequence. It is, on its own terms, correct. The hand that held each of those women was, before the law, theirs. The law cannot reach past the hand. It was built by people who did not believe there was anything past the hand to reach. The thing they could not confirm in 6 freezers did not go to prison. It does not have a face that holds still long enough to charge. It does, I think, have a hand. We have descriptions of it. The descriptions agree. There is one more thing in the file that I have not been able to put down. The institutional reports for the women in custody, written months apart by different officers in different facilities, contain a pattern that no one was looking for. Several of the women have been observed after lights out at what the night officers have estimated independently is the same hour, whispering. The sentence is always the same one. The officers in 2 of the facilities have escalated something else more recently that I will tell you and then I will stop. Some of the women have small cuts, self-inflicted, on the inside of the forearm, shallow, healing. New ones every few weeks. The cuts are clean. There is no infection, no indication of distress in the affect of the women. When asked in 2 separate interviews, in 2 separate institutions, why they had been cutting themselves, both women gave the same answer. They gave it calmly. They gave it almost confused that they had been asked. They said, "He is hungry. The husbands are dead. The husbands have been dead for years. The dead stopped breathing." That part is in the coroner's reports. They did not stop being fed. That part is on the institutional file. The women in their cells, after lights out, at the same hour in different facilities, are still providing the necessaries of life. I keep the third file on my desk. I tell people it's because the disclosure is incomplete and I am waiting on a transcript. The disclosure is complete. The transcript came months ago. I keep it on my desk because the stall is gone and the recipe is groceries, and the hand with the scar is somewhere this Saturday in a folding chair, behind a blanket, in a town I cannot name, talking to a lonely woman who has not yet been told the difference between wanting and need. The woman is going home tonight with a small amber bottle in her purse. She will use it, and someone she loves will, for a little while, give her everything he has.